I want to go to Gina and Nomiki here for more analysis on just exactly what it all means for Hillary Clinton's campaign. Gina, she was supposed to be the anointed one. She was supposed to sort of walk into this with no problems. It's anything but right now. You just saw the favorability, the negativity ratings that Ed Henry put up there on the screen. Ultimately, do you think we see Joe Biden in this race, and does he trump her?
I think absolutely. I think the person shocked. I think the person shocked most of all by this is Hillary. And you asked about a smoking gun. I mean, we've all heard the adage where there's smoke, there's fire. But I think the smoking gun for most of the voters out here is just that she failed to go the extra mile to protect what may have been a security issue.
Okay, Gina, hold that thought. We'll come back to this. But Ash Carter is speaking right now. Let's listen to the Secretary of Defense. He was right here in New York City less than 48 hours ago, meeting with the President of the United States, and never told him he was going to do this. I mean, what does that say about our president and our White House's approach to all of this, Gina?
And how does the rest of the world view it? Trish, I think you make a great point here. The weakness of this president has brought us to this point. And what I find particularly reprehensible about the comments just now from the administration is the fact that anyone would politicize this at this moment and try to use this as a partisan issue. If there is a partisan argument to be made, it's that this president has weakened us in the face of a bully like Putin that should have been identified, called out, and stopped a long time before this happened.
Nomiki, you're shaking your head. No, I mean, I don't know how. I don't know how you defend this. It's alarming to me as an American that, traditionally we have led these efforts, or at least we have known about these efforts, and all of a sudden you got Vladimir Putin going totally rogue.
Vladimir Putin has never been an ally of ours. Let's make that very clear. In fact, Vladimir Putin is doing exactly the opposite of we have a democracy here. We debate issues. We debate budgets. We debate whether or not we're going to invest in spending overseas or not. Russia, what they did was they made sure that they had a unanimous vote. Putin pressured his house so they could have a unanimous vote for the airstrikes, saying that it was international law, that they were going there to fight ISIS, when in reality they were using SA-15s and SA-22s, which are Russian missiles that don't even... ISIL's not using those types of missiles. So it's clearly to go against Assad.
Why are we left out in the dark? Why doesn't our president know that this stuff is happening?
Well, first thing, Israel's defense minister was warned ahead of time. He made a call. Putin made a call to Israel's defense minister. So my theory is that we probably had some sort of
hold that thought. I do want to go back to the Defense Secretary, Ash Carter, who is answering questions right now on Russia. Let's listen in. This, of course, just coming 48 hours after Vladimir Putin and President Obama sat down together, and Vladimir Putin never told him he was going to do this. I want to bring in our panel for analysis. We have Niall Gardner, Nomiki Konst, and Gina London. One of the things that shocked me is that he said, this is Ash Crofter, saying that, one of the problems with this approach is that this is not the behavior that we should expect from Russia. Effectively, he says they're not acting, quote, professionally. Nomiki, when are we suddenly demanding that other world powers act professional?
Well, if they're claiming that they're a democracy, and if they're claiming that they're going to be adhering to international law, then you would expect that honesty is honesty and truth is truth. I don't
know as you can, I think this is one where you need your intelligence community out there trying to basically run 3 steps ahead of Putin, because he just ran 3 steps ahead of us.
And I think we are, and we don't know for sure whether or not we're not ahead of him as well. I mean, he's saying that we're violating international law, as NATO members, going into Syria and preventing Assad, who is violating international law by trying to take down Assad and ISIS, who are also violating international law. They're claiming that we're breaking the law when they're the ones who used the law and then lied about it and are committing airstrikes supposedly against Assad.
Okay, so one of the key points as well that we heard from Ash Carter was that the Russians are attacking targets that are not ISIS targets. So, Niall, when you hear that, what do you think? Is in fact,
well, I think,
let me follow that up with another question. Is in fact Vladimir Putin doing this in order to keep an ally, Assad, in power?
Well, exactly. It's all about the Russians keeping a client state in power in the form of the Assad regime. And for many decades, of course, Syria has been a client state of Russia, and that's not going to change. I don't think that Mr. Carter's comments this afternoon will make Vladimir Putin quake in his boots, frankly.
I do think hey, you know what? You guys didn't act professionally. You did not act professionally, Vladimir Putin. I don't know if that's going to do it. I think you're right now. Gina?
Yeah, it's so funny because it almost sounds like, Ash is talking out of both sides of his mouth. This is bad, and he shouldn't do this, and he's a bully and a thug. But, oh, by the way, would you please act more professionally? I mean, the American approach at this point, this administration's approach to foreign policy, and in particular the terrorist threat, has always been sort of schizophrenic, at least to people looking in from the outside. As you mentioned, Obama being in a meeting with them 2 days ago. Why didn't our intelligence know this?
I know. You're absolutely right. Here, I want to share with you all something that John McCain said there on the floor of the Senate today, because he really helps to crystallize why this is such a big concern. Listen to this.
The White House has said it's unclear exactly what Russia's intentions are. If the White House is confused about Putin's intentions and plans in Syria, then the United States is even worse trouble than many fear, because it's not hard to discern what Vladimir Putin wants.
Good old-fashioned territorial land grab. He's making inroads there in Ukraine, taking over the country bit by bit, and trying to be the guy in charge now in the Middle East. Many critics of this administration would say this is a direct result of President Obama not being tough enough. Nomiki, could this have been prevented?
Putin's a madman. What's going on? He's playing a game of chess, and he's planning, he wants to be a global power. What is he going to do? He's going to fight America and NATO and the international community and the UN. It's not viable. It's not realistic. Right now, he's losing, as Niall said earlier. This is about flexing his muscles. Russia is not the power that it used to be. What he's doing is he's trying to flex his muscles so he can show the world that
and he's only got a little bit of time left. I mean, isn't that part of the problem? KT McFarland was just on the program yesterday. She used to work with Pentagon and knows quite a bit about these things. And she made the point that, the clock is ticking. Niall, he's only got so much time, and he is going to play for every single minute.
Yeah, Vladimir Putin is extremely ruthless and unscrupulous. In contrast, I think, President Obama is viewed by the Russians as very weak-kneed and dithering, and the Russians take advantage of that. The only language that Mr. Putin understands is the language of strength and resolve, and we simply haven't seen that being projected by the Obama White House.
No, you haven't. You just haven't. So, as we move forward, as we're trying to deal with the likes of a thug, as John McCain said, like Vladimir Putin, is the answer, Gina, to be tough, to be tougher than him, to not say, hey, guys, you're not being professional enough, but to actually really act. And when you say something, you mean it.
Yes, Trish. My background's in psychology, and I can tell you the psychology of the bully on the playground applies here very, very well. And the scariest part about this isn't that there's a rogue guy like Putin out there. There's always a rogue guy like Putin out there. The scariest part of this is that he stood and thumbed his nose at international law and thumbed his nose at the President of the United States in doing so, because he knew he could get away with it. Would this have happened under a Kennedy or a Reagan?
That's the most incredible thing about it, right? I mean, he came right here in New York City, came to our country, requested a meeting with President Obama, got up on stage with him there at the UN. It seemed like everything was hunky-dory, and then what do you know?
That should be on the minds of Americans right now as they're watching this whole thing go down, because this administration is going to try to talk a lot about, it's us versus them, this bad guy. And it'd be nice if they had been talking about that, going back and being a lot tougher about it, because Obama on the international scale is just not thought of as a strength, and that's a very scary thing.
What does that mean? Like launching airstrikes against Russia, having President Obama pose shirtless on top of a horse? I mean, that's what Putin's doing.
I don't know.
That's not what we don't operate that way. We use diplomacy.
But Nomiki, that's not the way that Kennedy handled it. That's not the way that Ronald Reagan handled it. There are ways to be tough without taking your shirt off and posing on top of a horse.
So
that's
let me hear an idea.
I'm talking about. But I am talking about a solid policy. How about the hot mic moment? Remember, before the last election, oh, wink, wink, we'll talk after the election. I mean, these kinds of things make people understand that Obama is much more concerned with compromise and the next Democrat election than he is with actually solving these problems. And that's been the problem that conservatives have maintained since the beginning of this administration.
We're going to take a quick break. Niall, thank you so much. Nomiki, always good to have you here. Gina, thank you very much. We're going to continue monitoring these